Hey, folks, I want to welcome our guest to the show. It is Stacy Brown Jr. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
How you doing, bud?
I am good, man. I've been excited to talk to you for quite a while now. So I want to jump right into it. I know a lot of people know who Stacy Brown is, but for those that don't, let's talk a little bit about what got you interested in this Bigfoot subject and what started you on this path that you've been on.
So I'm kind of retarded, right? Uh, but so basically, I've always been interested in like weird things, and I always had this inability to pay attention, right? So there was a few things that I actually could dive into, and next thing I know, hours had passed. Bigfoot was one of them. Football was another, and then Kurt Cobain. Like, honestly, the only three things I can think of. When I said that start out, I could recite, and probably still can if I sat down and just like thought about it again. I could recite like football stats from 1964 when I was in second grade. You know what I mean? Like I had almanacs and I would read through them and just get like, I don't know what, it's like a photographic memory. I could just see the page again. And then I'm just busting off the stats that people, you probably don't even know played the game. So when I get into my research, that's how that goes. It's like it's a stupidity kind of thing. It's like, why do you even care? You know? But anyways, so cryptids, monsters in general was one of those things that could just pin my attention for hours. Around 6, I guess it probably started younger than that, but around 6, I seen on Unsolved Mysteries. It was in '92. So they had a Skunk Ape episode, and that was my introduction to the Skunk Ape. And I was like, wow, Bigfoot could live here. He could live in the neighborhood, you know? And so that's where I went with that. I was like Bigfoot hunting at everybody's house that I went to. We had like some woods because Wakulla County, when I grew up, even today, it's still 75% national forest, right? And it's a massive county. But there was not a lot of people here back then, so there were woods everywhere. You could get into deep woods real quick, and so that's what we did. We didn't have iPhones. We had video games back then, but it wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? We still played out in the dirt, and that's what we did. I talked to all my buddies, and we would go hunting Bigfoot. Drag my sister along. Had this like VHS shoulder style camera of my dad's, a Panasonic. And then he also taught this martial arts class. So like I had all these weapons, so nunchucks, all these damn martial arts weapons that we would go into the woods with in case Bigfoot came at us. We was he's about to get that damn Jean-Claude Van Damme on his ass, and Bruce Lee, so but yeah, that really grabbed my interest. And then the library books, every bit of information that I could gather, I gathered. And then life, I grew up, got into sports, things like that, kind of got out of it. And then I think I was around 27, it was 2011. Yeah, it should put me around the 27 age range. Finding Bigfoot came on. Their second episode, they had a Florida episode. And this lady had a handprint on the inside of her door. Like she had this Florida room on the outside. So it was like what we would call, as poor folks would call, a screened-in porch. But this wasn't poor folks. They had glass for their windows, and they like some kind of glass they fold out so you could enjoy the luxury of a screened in porch. But anyways, her door to that Florida room, you opened it up, and it would come back, shut back on you. And so what the thought is, the little handle was not a knob, it's like a handle you turn and pull towards you. Said it opened it up somehow, and the door shut on its arm, maybe. And it snatched its arm out, and there was this like 12-inch handprint, huge handprint, look weird. Then Bobo falls down the steps, on the porch there. And so they put her name on the internet, or not on the internet. They put her name on the show, and we looked her up in the white pages because we didn't have internet. Even in 2011, it still really wasn't like it is. You had the internet, but you might have got on it 3 or 4 times a week. So I called her up, and she's like, "Yeah, come on out, but do it in November," because it was summertime then. It's probably June, June, July, maybe May. It was really hot. She was worried about the snakes. Obviously, when she said that, I wanted to argue. I was like, "Ma'am, with all due respect, it ain't gonna be an issue if there's snakes. And I'm fine with the heat. I've been here my whole life." But didn't argue. So waited till November to go out there. My dad had got sick with kidney cancer or bladder cancer, and so he couldn't go. So my bass player went with me, guy I worked with. And at this point now, I was a musician, so I played shows just about every weekend. But I was really into Rick Dyer came out. When he came out with his hoax, I was blasting it to people. "Boy, Bigfoot's real. I told y'all Bigfoot was real. Bigfoot was real." And now me and my dad had been going Bigfooting, but it was just more or less hanging out, spending time. We really didn't know what we were doing. We wasn't actually thinking there was a Bigfoot. But I could still tell you all the Bigfoot stuff, like I said, just useless facts. So we go out there, we see something immediately driving down the driveway. Something black steps into the woods, right? And so we stop and we're listening, and we think we're psyching ourselves out. So then we meet the lady. She takes us around the property, gives us the whole, Bigfoot sighted there in 2011 or 2008, Bigfoot sighted there 2007. This whole like tourist Bigfoot land extravaganza tour, and then we get to the campsite, and she's like, "Yeah, nobody's ever camped out here overnight. See y'all in the morning." And I was like, "All right, she's got to be messing with us, right?" We walk around the woods, find some interesting things. There's some structures on the property, and they're weird because the structures are like knee high. Could have been built by a human, the ones we've seen. But then the thought process was like, why is this old lady with a medical disability coming out here in the woods? Because this spot in Florida is like hills. It's like North Georgia almost. Not as bad, but I guess a good Missouri. Like Missouri would be a good idea if you've ever been in the woods up in Missouri. A lot like that. So it didn't make sense to these old people to be walking the terrain. Especially with the snakes, copperheads. She had a lot of copperheads. But whatever, so it gets dark, and we're gonna hike the trails at night. So we head out, and we walk for probably a mile and a half. We get up on this one big hill, and there's a loop at the top of it, and so we get on that, and we sit down next to where these structures are. And we're sitting there. I got a little cheap thermal, right? And I say cheap, but it was a lot to me. And it's like electrical wiring, things like that kind of thermal. Well, things like hickory nuts are falling in November. So we're sitting there, and they're falling like they should. And then one bounces up the hill, like up this hill. towards us, right? I look at Matt. I'm like, hey, bud, you seen what just happened? He's like, yeah, dude, that's just like, he's skeptical. He believes in Bigfoot or thinks it's cool, but I don't know if maybe because he was scared, he was being skeptical. Happens again. He's like, it's got to be hitting something and bouncing up here. There's just like, and then it's like, right between us. And I was like, yeah, bro. And then I hold the thermal up, you know, not really wanting to hold the thermal up. So, like, we get over there, and lo and behold, there's this huge heat signature on the other side of the creek. The ravine, we were sitting on the edge of a ravine, so it went straight down to a creek, pretty steep little embankment there, and then went gradually kind of back up, out of it. It was on the other side, and it was behind this tree that you couldn't hide behind, let alone a damn Sasquatch. So, I think we got a lowbrow here. Luckily for us, we had one that was just so interested. It wasn't really, I don't think, being smart. We get this terrible thermal blob picture, which you can't tell what it is. It's just a huge heat signature behind like one or two trees. So we are like, all right, maybe that's it. It's not really moving now that we're looking at it. Let's head on back to camp. Probably just psyching ourselves out. That we'll probably explain that in the morning. So we walk back to camp, and so we had to finish this loop that's at the top of this hill, go down, cross this bridge, walk this long trail, probably a quarter mile to this curve, and then up a hill. We ended up having to walk about a mile and a half back. However, we were just like 500 yards from our camp and didn't realize it. Like, on the other side of that hill, there was another hill, and then there was our camp. So we basically walked back right to where this damn thing was standing. Start hearing things, and we're camped on a hill. Okay, it's cleared out, but it is pretty steep down around the edges of it, and the leaves are all on the ground, so you can hear anything that moves. So we start hearing stuff, limbs breaking, something walking. I did know at that point in time that armadillos will sound like somebody. I thought somebody had broken into our house when I was like 16 or 17. I happened to be on the back patio, not broken our house, but it was up by the house. And I thought I'd heard somebody walking, so I got the gun and run through the woods chasing this damn armadillo until I figured out it was an armadillo. Anyways, I knew I knew that, hey, that's probably an armadillo. So I get tired of hearing it. It's like messing with this anxiety level is really like high in this situation. I go over and I shine this tree. I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, bud, you're going to have to come out. Whatever you are, you're going to have to come out. And I shit you not, I must have held that light there for 10 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, God, I'm going nuts. Turn the damn thing off. Start walking back to the camp or about a campfire and starts walking again. It was like these things were so patient. It would wait you out, and then we're sitting there on a cooler. My buddy had started to drink at that point. It was unnerving, right? Then all of a sudden we just hear this like deep breathing. We turn and look, edge of the firelight, there it is. Didn't make a sound coming up the hill. Okay, that's going to be very important probably later in this conversation when I tell you what I think these things are. Because it's completely different than what I started. So anyways, this thing is standing right here, edge of the firelight. I don't know what it is about the light. It scares the hell out of these things. They can't understand it or whatever. So like, that's what I usually tell people. Oh, should I have protection? Yeah, you should have a flashlight. That gun ain't gonna do nothing. size of this thing, like you're gonna have to have one of them damn long ass rifles where your buddy's got a barrel on his shoulder and you're standing about 5 feet behind him to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? So we're now flipping out. He's drinking, and he goes and gets in the tent. It's like, I'm going to bed. I can't sleep. I'm like freaked out. I got a 44 Magnum Ruger Red Hawk on my hip. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a big ass pistol. I got this pistol so I could beat somebody to death with it if I run out of bullets. I was like, all right, cool. It's a weapon in itself. That was the main sell on that pistol, for me at least. It's chrome. You can see it, right? Any light hits it, it's shining. If this would have been a person in a suit, they severely got issues, because had that Sasquatch or a person in a suit jumped out from behind a tree, I would have shot, no problems. I was so scared. I thought this thing was going to kill us. Also didn't understand at the time why I was still standing there. You know, like, truck was literally right there. We should just got in the truck and left. But I ended up falling asleep setting up on the cooler. I'm setting up and I just like do like that deal. And so then I go get in the tent with Matt. Now, in all fairness, we had 2 tents. So this ain't no like Brokeback Florida or nothing like that. We didn't plan on sleeping in the same tent. We were scared. Even though we were grown men, we were scared. We get in that same tent. And then I wake up a few hours later to him screaming at the top of his lungs. And the tent is like that far from our face. I guess this thing had never seen a tent. It knew we were in there sleeping, but it didn't know what it was. It had pressed the top of it down, right? And I guess the screaming startled him at some point, because he comes off of it. And maybe it didn't startle him because it woke me up and he was still pressing it down. So it could have been a she. I didn't mean to assume gender to all my gender people out there, 47 genders. So anyways, he runs off into the woods. We sit up in the tent, scared. Matt's like, first light comes. Matt's like, all right, dude. And it felt like forever, hour or so. First light, Matt's like, all right, I'm going and getting in the truck. Come on. I was like, no, I am not getting in the truck to go to sleep. I don't want to wake up and be able to see this thing. I don't know that I'll survive that. One of them moments where you're so scared you accidentally shoot yourself, fumbling around. But I had no inclination to have this thing staring at me from just a few inches away. So I went back to sleep in the tent. He did get in the truck. Got up. Me and him really didn't talk. Called my dad. My dad's like, you mean to be telling me you've been looking for Bigfoot since you was 6 and you're going to come home now that you found him? And some other words exchanged there, but basically I'll punch you in the face if you come home right now. Man up. My dad was a ranger, so it's like, man up. It didn't kill you. It didn't even try to kill you. When it sounds like it could have, if it wanted to. So stay another night. And so me and Matt don't talk. We're going to Hardee's for breakfast, which is a ride in the Chattahoochee of about 20 minutes. And we order our food, we sit down, and then Matt says the first words that we had spoke that morning, which is, well, it didn't get us. Do you want to stay another night? And we did. So we stayed the next night, walked around in the woods, found a lot more of those structures that were small. Now, over the years, I ended up spending 7 years on that property. Over the next 7 years, that was the norm. You know what I mean? Like, for some reason, the structures were knee high, waist high. They'd just be like, and they were always extravagant. There'd be like 2 of them, and there'd be something going in between them, or there'd be two or a bunch of sticks here in the middle with one on the top of it. And it's like standing out in the middle of nothing. You know what I mean? Not like in the brush where there's a bunch of sticks. It's like, okay, somebody actually made this. It's either a person or a Bigfoot, but this just did not fall like this. But anyways, found a bunch of that stuff. Got lost. Got back. It got dark again. Like clockwork, bro. Second it got dark, this stuff started happening again. We heard some grunts, and then we heard it scream or holler, whatever the hell that how you would describe that, because it was odd. But it was just you know, like where I grew up, there was a swamp outside the back door, woods everywhere. I heard just about every sound I thought at least that would be in this area. Never had heard that. And then probably a mile away, and I'm just guessing on that, could have been closer, could have been further, something replied to it, made the same sound back to it. And that was it. You know, that was we were sold on it. And I got on the Bigfoot forums, which was kind of the Bigfoot thing back then, 2011. And I was just outside looking in. I was like, all right, these people are all mentally ill. This is the problem. This is why Bigfoot hasn't been found. Every single person here is an absolute moron. They couldn't go and harvest a turkey if they wanted to. They know nothing about nothing. I've seen nobody talking about the feed times. Not one person. Knowledge to everybody that's never hunted before. You know, pro tip. There is a time during the day where everything in the forest will feed. And it's about 2 hours long. Work that when you're Bigfooting. And if that's in the day or if that's in the night, work that major feed time. But I've seen nobody doing these things. And I'm like, oh, I was just within yards of a Bigfoot. This is going to be done soon. So I'm like, boom, I'm going to be Jacques Cousteau. I'm going to be something amazing, guys. They're going to have a bronze statue of me in Crawfordville, Florida, up there in the park. It says, Stacy Brown, Bigfoot's real, suck it. And that's all I wanted to say, because everybody's just talk noise, you know, run him out. And, but it proved to be a rabbit hole that I fell into that led into the belief I have today. And I wish I wasn't so closed-minded back then, because when I got into this, it was an ape. And I'd stand on the rooftop and scream it to the world. I'd argue it with anybody. We just ain't found it yet. You know, the lowland gorilla wasn't discovered till the 30s. And I give these stupid ass excuses, which I bought into because it looked like it. And there was nothing odd associated with my first encounter that I thought. But that's basically the long, well, it's not a long version, but that's a shorter long version of my first encounter. So
I definitely like the long version, man. The more you talk, the better the show is. So I want to talk a little bit about there's a lot I want to get into. I want to talk a little bit about stick structures, but I want to fast forward to the thermal footage that your dad captured with you in the woods. That's the big thing. I've watched it a couple of times today. I've looked over some of the breakdowns, and I know Cliff has done a breakdown of it. So that's the big thing that everybody wants to talk about. So let's get into that. Tell us how that came about and sort of take us into that experience when you and your dad captured that thermal footage.
Okay, so like I said, I jumped off into it with a almost weird obsession, like weirdly obsessed. I'm telling everybody at work, I'm doing everything. Bigfoot's real. We've seen it, you know. About to prove this thing. Everybody's cracking jokes. And so that couldn't have been 6 months, maybe, I guess. My math's terrible. I was in pre-algebra for 4 years, bro. Like I started remembering the word problems. Yeah. So I still didn't know the damn answer, but I was like, hey, I read this before somewhere. Anyways, I quit my band, and we were doing good. We were making money. You know what I mean? We were playing shows, 300-400 people there. Sometimes we still play the shows with 10 people, but most of the time, packed house. Um, and then I was like, nope, got a greater calling. And it cleaned me up in a lot of ways. Like I quit the drinking so much, you know what I mean? Because it's in a rock band. Okay, so I did rock band things, right? Without going into detail, I'm sure y'all can figure that out. So in a way, it changed my life for the better. But Dad seen how serious I was. I had 2 trucks. One was really nice Ford Ranger, and one was a S10. Kind of shitty beater, but I loved it. I'd had it for years, there was some love there to that one. So I sold the nice one because I could get more money out of it to buy equipment. And I'm going all the time at this point, 3-4 nights a week. I'm going to the woods. I'm going to do research. I'm logging all this stuff. Very important to me. So Dad sells his boat so we can get a nice fleer. He starts going with me a little bit more because he's just getting over cancer. So it's like a Tuesday, I believe. I was working. Dad hits me up. I had the next 2 days off. So I moved to 12-hour shifts so I could have more days off to Bigfoot. And a little bit of rain, that day. He's like, hey, you want to go squatching tonight? Let's just go out there for a night. And I was like, all right, cool, we'll go. Come pick me up, grab my backpack and all that. Just come and get me. So he did. We went to the park. Like I said, it's Tuesday. Nobody in the park. And we hiked down into the Rock Creek campground, which is about a mile or so hike from the parking lot there down into that little, it's like a huge ravine almost, but you got to walk down into it, down where that creek is. And we're hanging out, not doing much, cooking ribs. Got some music going, some Rob Zombie and some other stuff. I hear this knock, and I was like, uh-oh, they're coming in, and chuckle. A few minutes later, hear another one. And I'm like, hey, for real, they're coming in. And I'm starting to get stuff together. He's like, dude, it's just a wind blowing the trees together. The wind was blowing. It had, excuse me, it had rained, I think a half inch or something that day, but it was like a drizzle for a really long time. Never like just a 30-minute session where it pours down ungodly amounts of water and then quits. It's back sunny again. So I was like, nah, dude, that's them. They're knocking. They're coming in. This is how this goes. And then another knock. And I'm like, for real, we need to go. And he's like, man, we ain't ate yet. You sure that's a knock? I'm like, yeah, that's a knock. He goes, all right, well, if another one happens, we'll go. And as soon as he says that, it's like a grunt before the knock. Like it almost like threw its back into it, He's like, all right, we'll go out. So we crank the music up as loud as it'll go. Stoke that fire so it's up. We were in an area where the palmettos around us were at least head high, if not a little bit taller, right? And there's this narrow trail that you got to walk down to get back to where the knocks were coming from. They were coming up by the woodshed. There was like a wood shack there, like a little lean-to where you could get wood at $7 a bundle, which was a rip-off back then, but whatever. So we're heading towards that, and the cicadas are super loud. There's like, this is helping us. We if you look back at it, it was almost like a perfect storm because the ground's like wet, so it's not crunching. Cicadas are super loud, so that's covering what noise we're making. Palmettos are high, can't nothing really see us. We just kind of duck a little bit. And so we head out in the dark. Dad puts the thermal on black heat because it made the trail defined and look like snow. We're also really scared of snakes. We're worried about snakes, right? Not scared, but damn sure didn't want to step on a rattlesnake or a water moccasin. Going down it, we're hearing these noises all around us, something big running. And we hear something down this hill embankment. So we think we're on the blue trail there. We think we turn on the blue trail and are walking down, but we're actually on a game trail. This came into play when we were doing the recreation numbers for Cliff. If we were on the blue trail, that thing became like 4 foot tall or something like that, right? And it didn't have that limb in the corner. There's a limb in the corner on the footage, and that's how we were able to. We knew that was the tree. We just didn't know, exactly where which spot we were standing in. We had to get that spot and then back up. And then as soon as we backed up enough, there was that limb in the frame, and we were on the game trail. So anyways, head down this game trail. We hear it coming, and then it stops, and Dad's like, there it is. He's looking at it. He's like, I think it's a coon, and he thinks it's 2 raccoons. This is like some scurrying on the bark. It's like some noise. Maybe it's rubbing its hands or something, stroking a tree, weirdo. But anyways, so something happened. I don't know if my dad kicked the palmetto bush. The spot's foggy in my mind, and you can't really hear it on the tape, which was disappointing because Dad's got the thermal, and I'm behind him with a little Sony Handycam. I videoed everything, start to finish. And then this thing shoots out. I hear it tear off, Dad turns and he's like, we gotta go. And he's like heading back to camp, flipping out. He's like, get your gun. Now, my dad's the ranger. I've never heard him say, get your gun. You know what I mean? Seriously, you don't get the gun unless somebody's getting shot. You know what I mean? Something's getting shot if we're going that route. So I'm like, whoa, I got my gun. What the hell's going on? I'm thinking a cat, big cat, because that's what I'm scared of. But then, he's telling me the camera just went dead. He can't catch his breath. And you see that. You see him go from skeptic to holy shit, they're real, all on camera. It's a cool moment. But just his panic. And then when we went back to the camp, I still didn't see the footage. We tear down camp and we leave. And as we're leaving, this thing's following us. It's coming out the trail with us, right? Because we would stop, we would hear it, and we would go some more. And then we get there to the parking lot, get in the truck. I watch the footage. I'm like, what are we leaving for? He's like, hey, you can take the camera and go back down there, you damn self. Big man. He's like, I don't know what that is. There's no cars in the parking lot. You know what I mean? He goes through this whole thing of, are you messing with me? And I'm like, well, where the hell did they park? You heard the ranger. We are the only people in the park besides him tonight. Where did they go? We're a mile in the woods. That thing didn't have no flashlight and it was running. So there's so many factors there that it couldn't have been a person. But that was only for me and my dad to know because nobody else was there. You know what I mean? Like all the people in the world could see this footage. Not proof to them. It's actually proof to us. I don't need science anymore. That was real. So we talk about it the following week, or in the following weeks. Like, we got to put this out. And he's like, dude, somebody's got to look at it. We need to have this. He realizes that it's important at that point. It's like we need an outside source to look at this and come up with these numbers. We don't need to be involved in that if we want to lend any credibility to ourselves. I think a lot of things researchers do, and that's the problem with it, is when they get a piece of footage nowadays or something like that, they'll do the recreation. They'll do all that. And you really can't. You know what I mean? Like, you seriously can't. Because, first of all, who are we? Nobody knows who we are. And even if somebody knows who you are, you know what I mean? But, and then another thing, we're not smart enough to come up with them numbers. Like, back to the math, pre-algebra, 4 years. That was a university sentence, man. Should have learned something, but I didn't know how to do it, Cliff. We made probably 10 trips, I'd say, something like that. We made a good number of trips out to the film site, which was about an hour away, 45 minutes to an hour. And, that's money. You know what I mean? We're going out there taking numbers for Cliff, taking pictures, and this is over a few months. And then he comes down. He makes sure all the numbers are right. I guess before he does his thing. And that's it. That was all she wrote there for us, which I'm really glad we hooked up with Cliff on that. We became friends after that and stuff like that. But it was like winning the Super Bowl with your best friend. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, back when I was 27, I would have cared if you believed. I mean, that would have bothered me if you would have told me. Now I don't care. And it's like, hey, whatever, dude. I know the real. Call me a liar all you want, but you don't know that. You don't know for a fact that I'm lying. I've done everything that I can to, clear that. And I thought, having Cliff do the numbers would be enough, but it's not. People still accuse you of hoaxing. And then I was like, well, hey, y'all come out. I'll give you the camera, take you to the spot, and you can figure out how we did it if we hoaxed it. You know what I'm saying? People are always going to do that. It taught me more about the Bigfoot community and what trash it was. But at the end of the day, hadn't nobody got nothing since the Patterson film that was that good. I'm not bragging. But I mean, just being honest, there's not really been a piece of footage out there, especially not a thermal image, something that's that good. Even to this day, maybe I'm being biased, but it's got to be like one of the top 3 pieces of footage out there, because it's clear, it's not blurry, it's thermal image. There's this whole report with it. The actual encounter is on camera, as for a documented sighting, we have my dad's whole reaction to the thing, us from when we left the camp. We got the thermal image, and then we got Cliff's report. What else could you have? You know what I'm saying? So if there was ever something to make a damn claim using video evidence that Sasquatch is real, I would think this would hold up.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of films, man, and I tell you, I've watched it a couple of times today, and it was so funny. I was on the phone with Doug Hychek yesterday, and Doug put out this thing recently where he's talking about the 20 ways to spot a hoax in video footage of a purported Bigfoot. And I called Doug yesterday and I said, hey, man, I want to do a show on this because I think it's important for my listeners to hear this. And I don't know that all of them listen to Untold Radio or follow you on Facebook or whatever. He was like, do whatever you want to. So I put out a show today, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that Doug mentions in his sort of, it's a red flag kind of thing as far as whether something's real or not. One of the first things that he points to is when people get footage nowadays, if the person who films the footage is alone, that's a big red flag. But there's 2 of you guys, right? You got 2 cameras. You got a thermal footage with the FLIR going on, and you've got you filming your dad's reaction to this when he catches that on film. And the big thing that stuck out for me that a lot of people probably don't even think about is you sat on it. You didn't just go out and put it on Facebook, and you didn't just blast it and say, I think Doug calls it, I just caught Bigfoot on film, right?
Right.
Anytime I see that on Facebook or in a, some kind of clickbait shit that people put out on the internet, it's usually people trying to get you to click and get views or whatever, and then it turns out to be complete bullshit.
Right.
But the fact that you waited, and the fact that you didn't do that, and the fact that you sought the expert advice, I don't think anybody's an expert, but if there's anybody that's credible in this, Jeff Meldrum's one, and Cliff Bergman is the other one. And you went to somebody who could do the math and come up with a non-biased, I don't have a dog in the fight kind of approach to this. And that to me was, even if the footage wasn't as great as it is, that in and of itself convinced me that you weren't full of shit, like a lot of people are in this, who
Right.
claim to catch this kind of stuff. But if you look at the footage, you look at it, it is what it is. And then you have all the other things that go along with it. I think it's probably next to the Patterson Gimlin film, in my opinion. I don't think anything else touches it. Todd
Right.
Standing's had some stuff in the past. I've got my opinions on Todd. I consider Todd a friend. We are friends, but I still am not 100% on all of his shit that he puts out that says it's a real Sasquatch on video. But that said, I think it is the top 1 to 2 things that I've ever seen that has convinced me beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's something out there.
Right. Yeah, like I said, we got it in May. It came out on December 2nd. So there was a long period of time there that we didn't put that out. The handycam footage, didn't put that out for, hell, that didn't come out till the Skunk Ape Lives came out, like years later. But, because we felt maybe that would be something that people would trash us on, because, yeah, why were you filming it? Why were you filming it? And like, I don't think people understand how important it is to be running audio every time, to be running video all the time. If you don't get nothing, hey, delete it, start again, but always run your video, and trying to explain that to a person that's never Bigfooted before is an issue on its own, because they're like, why don't you just get your camera out? So they always say, and then if you got your camera out, well, why'd you have your camera out? Say, which one is it, bro? Man, give me a break here. Shit, I'm trying to do the right thing. But yeah, man, that was it was something I wish we could get again. I really hope that one day we get some better footage than that. We got some in 2016. A buddy of mine, David Lauer, got it while we were at that spot with a handprint. And we recovered some tracks that week. You can't really tell what the thing is. You can, when it runs away, it looks like it's running bipedal. You know what I'm saying? It's on my YouTube. Y'all check it out. It's still a cool video, but it's not nowhere near that one. And I ended up with like 10 pieces of footage of things that I know were Sasquatch, but you can't tell. You can't tell. It's just like, okay, you see this heat signature come up over this thing, or it break through these trees here, and it's doing something there. But when you're watching the video, you don't know that that's actually a wall there, and that's like fence. And that thing's about 7 foot tall to be able to stick over the top of that fence. You'd have to explain more than you should. So, because that video was so great, like the other ones were just like, can't throw this out. You know what I mean? So, like, wow, you really can't tell what these things are. So, but yeah, man, it was something that I'll probably never get to be a part of again. And I hope I don't end up forgetting it one day. Seeing our president makes me think that I might not remember it forever. But I didn't say that out loud, did I?
I'm not going to edit that out of the show either.
Good.
So here's the thing I want to say about that before we kind of close that chapter. One of the things that I think is the really coolest thing about that entire thing is that you got to experience it with your dad, who since passed away. So my condolences, obviously, on your father's passing. But that's one of those things that nobody can ever. They can talk shit all they want about the footage, but they'll never take away what you know and who you got to experience it with, and that's
Eh,
the
that
important stuff.
that's right. It it that's why it means so much to me. You know what I'm saying? There isn't honestly a day that goes by I don't think about that night. And it to think back, it's like, yeah, I got to do that with my dad. Like I can tell people it's like winning the Super Bowl, with your best friend, and what a father son moment could actually end up being. And that's what mine was. So extremely grateful that I got that chance, you know.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, man. I was going to go in a different direction, but I want to respect your time and I want to get in some of the things that I want to talk about. I want to go back to the stick structures you were talking about on the property that you guys are finding, these knee-high stick structures. I've been on the fence about this for so long, about what these things could be and what their meaning might be. I found so much stuff here on my property in North Carolina. I'm born and raised in Georgia and I live in North Carolina on 40 acres now. And I put out things recently for the fans on the show who follow us on Instagram and some of the stuff on Facebook and the fans group. I've done hikes around my property and I found, yeah, we were recording a television show for Vice here on the property last year. And I found all these weird stick structures. And as you're talking about those, they're almost identical to what you were describing, like knee high, waist high kind of structures with this fulcrum sort of stuff that's out in the middle of, away from brush and away from just natural deadfall. And there's stuff like teetering, like this fulcrum design kind of thing. And it's so weird to me. And I never say that it's Sasquatch, right? I've got this cop brain. I was a cop for 16 years. So I have this, if it doesn't make sense, I've got to explain it kind of thing. I'm an Occam's razor kind of guy, but I just don't understand it. I don't know what it could possibly be. You've seen those kind of things, and I know you've got a little different take on Sasquatch than you did Skunk Ape before you started all this. What do you think those things are? What do you think they're doing, and what do you think they mean?
I don't really know what they're doing. That's the okay. So there's a lot to do with like occult magic in all this. If I could teach people now, it turns out the lady at the property was a practicing witch. She was conjuring all this shit up. We started seeing these lights, be slaps on the house, uh, these creatures, these craft. Some of the stories make it into like almost a Skinwalker Ranch type deal, and I don't understand. But like, if you would look in at some of the structures, the placements, okay. So like, I had a map on the property of where they were placed. Make a dot, and then they make a symbol, and it was a weird part about it. It could just be by chance, but I don't believe in that. And that's, if you believe in coincidence, then it's going to be hard to get in on some of this conversation. So I apologize on that, but I don't believe in coincidence. You as a cop, you probably don't believe in coincidence either. And where there's smoke, there's fire. What the structures are, I don't know if it's the ape camp part of me says they're just bored. But these things are traveling as lights. The lights are them. Part of me, that thing has meaning. The arches in the woods, we would experience a lot of strange shit, lights and so on around these arches. We would find these structures around these arches, and what they are, what the structures mean, I don't know, but I seriously doubt it's just them being bored. It is Sasquatch. It is those things making those. Why they're making them, I have no idea.
Well, you obviously mentioned a couple of times, and I started out with this, down this path myself, as it's strictly a flesh and blood creature. And the more people I've interviewed on the show, I'm 170 plus episodes in. I do a paranormal show that's, 50 plus episodes already. And I've interviewed so many people that have had so many different experiences in conjunction with and often at the same time as Bigfoot sightings and interactions, right? The orbs, the lights, the UFOs, they're seeing unidentified flying objects. And I used to chalk that shit up to just like, okay, well, that's happening here. This is a coincidence. They're having this habituation with a Bigfoot. It has nothing to do with the lights or the orbs. But I asked that question so many times of people I've talked to. And I had a guy that's into the paranormal stuff, Preston Dennett, months and months and months ago. I think it was last year. And he kept saying to me during the interview, Brian, everything is connected. Everything is connected. And the more that I've studied the subject and the more that I've gotten into it, I've always kept the mind open on this show. People get on to me all the time and people get pissed off because I have people on that talk about UFOs and they talk about Bigfoot are probably aliens or maybe it's an interdimensional creature or whatever. You know what? I don't close my mind off to anything. I think that science plays a part in this, but I think that anybody that's looking into this seriously has to keep their mind open to every single possibility. So I said all that to say, you started out, it seems to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It started for you, it seems that you were a flesh and blood creature kind of guy. Where do you sit right now, June 30th, 2022? What is your opinion on what these things are and where they're coming from?
I think they're demons. Straight up think they're demons. Okay, so I'm gonna explain myself. So like, I know what this sounds like, right? That thing walked up on me and never made a sound. And I promise you, if it's flesh and blood, it ain't doing that. Why do I only find left tracks or one track, right? The natives talk as they'll travel as balls of light, mini traps. And if you haven't seen the lights that are associated with this, I don't know what to tell you, right? The guys from Small Town Monsters came down and did a film with me. It's Panhandle Bigfoot or something like that on their YouTube. Check it out. I take them in my spot. We have knocks, and then there's a bright ass ball of light that appears. And they see it. Not me. I didn't see it. They seen it. Two guys that had never seen the orbs, didn't have no like thought process with the stuff being all connected. But they seen it. They can't explain it. It happened. Actually happened. So that was that's what's led me down this path. Okay, so like I'm at the Conjuring House a few weeks ago. Everybody thinks the Conjuring House, they think just ghosts, right? Absolutely wrong. There have been UFOs sighted there, been grays seen in the house, and there's been Bigfoot seen on the property. Okay, so the eye glow. Everybody talks about the eye glow versus the eye shine. Brought to me recently, brought to my attention that primates do not possess the layer of whatever it is in your eye to make your eyes shine. So if you're from the ape camp and you're saying, well, it can't be an eye glow because no creature on the planet has it, no mammal has its eyes glowing, you know what I mean? It would make it blind. Well, no primate has the ability to have eye shine. You gotta figure that out. Figure out what you're looking at. So that sounds paranormal to it, right? But the demons will have this horrible sulfur smell. The demons will have these red glowing eyes. They'll take all forms of things, and then they're communicating, like in the paranormal. Will tap on the desk, and they tap back. We're doing the same thing in the woods. Like, does it not make sense to people? Like, can you go? How many times have you been able to go out into the woods and pick up a stick and make that knock sound? You can't do it. It never sounds right. It never sounds as crisp because whatever's on the ground is rotten. You know what I mean? So it's like never just that. You know what I mean? And I've for years thinking, how are they doing this? They clapping their hands. They're doing it with their mouth. They're definitely not doing it with a stick. Why would they carry around a stick to do this? so it's just, to me, there's a lot of, because I'll go in the woods and do rituals. I'll do like, I'll use a singing bowl. I use all kinds of gear now. Like when I go, I've got my Bigfoot and stuff, got my DNA collection stuff, also got my paranormal gear. You know what I mean? How many people are we hearing that these things are communicating telepathically? Demon does that as well. There's just, I think it's worth everybody's while to actually look into demons and look for the correlation, right? This would explain a lot of stuff. This would explain why we don't have a body. This would explain how the damn thing was just there all of a sudden, and then it vanished. Like, and then it walked away. Like, have y'all not talked to people who have seen these things vanish in front of them? You know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't, it didn't happen to me, but the thing was gone. I mean, it run off and then it was gone. Didn't see it again. My equipment went dead. How many people in the Bigfoot world are talking about, well, my equipment keeps going dead? You know, the game camera was running, the bait was there, camera went dead, bait was gone, camera came back on. We're seeing the same things in the paranormal. And we're too stupid to put the things together. It bothers me. It's like I almost lose my mind over the thought of why everybody is just so shut off. It's like, listen, guys, you've had 60 years. You have made no fucking progress with anything. You don't know anything else about these creatures than we did in 1967. But we're still going to continue to do the same methods and not change anything about it because, God damn it, we're right. You know, and that is just like, wow. I think that's a definition of insanity. Continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I promise you, if you'll start doing these methods, you can have stuff happen every single time you go. Like, there's a lot of things, especially, and that's another thing. Like, people accept it when it comes to Dogman. They accept that the Dogman, the Beast of Bray Road, there was a lot of occult stuff, a lot of rituals going on, and then this Dogman's here. They, for some reason, can accept that, or at least maybe there's a certain part of the community that can. But I promise you, the same road here. The same road here. A lot of the places I've been, it turns out, used to be a lot of occult activity, or there was a witch in the area, or some shit like that. And so maybe that explains, at least to me, that explains a lot of it, because the occult, like magic, ritualistic side of it, it's all thought and intention. Like, people automatically think occult, they think devil worship, but it's basically like when you pray, you know somebody's in the hospital, your well wishes, you're praying for them, you're using magic. You're putting your thought and your intention into healing this person. If you throw the word occult on it, everybody thinks you're, worshiping Satan and drinking people's blood and stuff like that. But I think when people have these, and so like you also have a lot of Bigfoot sightings around graveyards, Indian mounds, things of that nature. I think when there's a lot of energy into into some of these places, no matter what energy that may be, I think that's conjuring these things, as to say, which may not make no sense. I may just ramble for a little bit, but hopefully you enjoyed that.
No, I agree, man. I don't close myself off to anything. 5 days out of 7, I'm probably a flesh and blood kind of guy. But when I talk to people like Les Stroud, we talked at length about his mind speak experience. And, I'm thinking, like, if this thing is a flesh and blood ape, I don't think anybody's talked about having mind speak from a chimpanzee or a gorilla, right?
Mm-mm.
But he's had a couple of experiences where he's had mind speak, and I think Les is a very believable, incredible person. Like, I don't discredit anything he says to me. So I believe him when he told me those stories. So there's got to be something to that. But I don't know. At the end of the day, like I said, 5 days out of seven, I'm thinking, well, it's probably flesh and blood, but I leave those other 2 days of the week open to theorize that it may be more than we could ever imagine. And I think that's probably at the end of the day for us, it's we don't really know anything about our reality. And until we figure that out, we're really not going to know anything about creatures like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman, whatever the case may be.
Right. Well, you have the people, the ape camp, especially. They come up, well, that's not scientific, but like science is just trying to figure out how something works, right? Uh, Cell phones are sorcery 100 years ago. What is going to be in 100 years from now? And all this may make sense and just may be like, no big deal. You know what I'm saying? So you can't, you're a cop. You cannot go into that investigation with a preconceived notion on what it is, or you're going to fail. You'll get your guy, the guy that you want to get, but you ain't going to get the truth. And so, like, when I say I believe they're demons, shit, that may change next week. And my mind's fluid on this. I promise you, nobody on this, somebody on this planet knows exactly what these things are. I think we're almost better off getting a disclosure kind of thing going, because I do believe the UFOs, the ghosts, the Bigfoots, all that shit, I'm all connected, all the same thing, probably all interdimensional beings at some way or another. And in 100 years, we may figure it out. But don't you think that if it was just a regular primate, it would be in a zoo? Like, give me a break. Come on. Somebody would have shot it. I would have shot it. Like, seriously. And there's people that can hunt better than me. Like, a lot of people can hunt better than me. But I promise you, somebody would have killed it by now. It just, that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? But I just wish the Bigfoot community could share all the info, not doctor reports or sanitize them. I'm gonna say no names, BFRO. Don't sanitize your reports. If there was a light in the report, let us know there's a light in the report. Like, my God, why can't you just tell the truth? Why does it have to be an ape? Because that's the whole thing. You've now got the biggest database in the country, and you've sanitized all the reports. So now all your stuff is shit. It doesn't equal anything because we can't use that data. We have to have the truth from everybody and what actually went on, and then compare everything. And you may be able to get something out of that. I end up thinking it's going to be something with the witnesses myself. At the end of the day, I think the truth is going to lie in the people. I think there's certain people that are seeing these things. Just because you're schizophrenic doesn't mean that shit's not really there, right? Just because I can't see it, because I'm colorblind. I guess your reality is everything that you can perceive. So your green shirt I'm perceiving as red. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just you're perceiving it differently. So I think perception on that. I believe a lot of people that's had Bigfoot encounters have also had paranormal encounters. Those are the things I ask for in my questionnaires. You seen a UFO? You seen a ghost? What kind of stuff are you into? You know what I mean? Like, do a lot of meditation, things of this nature. Because I honestly believe it's going to be, at the end of the day, the truth is going to lie somewhere with the witnesses, people that are experiencing these things.
I tend to agree, man. That's why I keep plugging on, and I do this show 3 or 4 times a week. I have people on that have had those encounters, and I put them out there for everybody to be the judge of, because I too believe that that's probably the best that we may ever get as far as evidence when it comes to these things, anecdotal or not. It is their experiences and it's data. So let's talk a little bit about what you got going on now. I know you got a movie coming out tomorrow. So why don't you tell the audience about that and tell us where we can find it, and what was that project about and what was it like?
So the film dropping tomorrow. It's the first OutKast paranormal film. It is a short documentary. about 30 minutes long, on the Bardin Booger. So back in 1982, there was a Bigfoot sighting in the small town of Bardin, an unincorporated town. It's basically a caution light, you know, like a general store and a few other things, and that's it. But somebody seen a skunk ape, but this one was carrying a lantern. There's always this light associated with it. All right. That person got to talking down at Bud's grocery about what he had seen. Next thing you know, local reporter wrote an article on it in the newspaper. It was cited another 20 something times that month. And next thing you know, the Weekly World News, the old tabloid, you know, Bat Boy and I Was Bigfoot's Love Slave, all that stuff. That was down there, and they were doing an article on the Bardin Booger. And next thing you know, there's a country song wrote about it, and it's a small little town in nowhere, Florida, that became a national spotlight overnight. You know, it's just a fun little film. You know, kind of family oriented. We go looking for the Bardin Booger. We uncover some truths about the Bardin Booger, you know. But mainly I just wanted to tell the story because it is one of my favorite stories of the skunk ape. Favorite kind of little things. I would have loved to have been in Bardin during that time when it was just going crazy with just booger stuff. Everybody was seeing the booger, you know what I mean? So it's a little piece of Bigfoot history that don't a lot of people know about, and most of the players in that game have passed away, but a few are still there. And they told me the story, and so I tried to do it justice and, you know, bring that to everybody because it's cool. It's a skunk ape. In the movie, we have a different type mask for it, you know. During the recreations and stuff, but it did carry a lantern. Now, nobody actually seen it physically carrying a lantern, but there was this light that was associated with all the sightings. And so it's one of the more early, I guess, American type, modern day time sightings or, you know, stories of the lights being involved.
Well, awesome, man. I can't wait to watch it. Where can everybody find the film? Where can they check it out?
We're in the process of getting it on Amazon right now. May take a little bit longer because they're stringent unless you have a distributor. And so for our YouTube films, we don't have a distributor. But anyways, it's going to be on the OutKast Paranormal YouTube. It's going to air at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you know, it's fun. It's a fun little movie. I think people are going to enjoy it. I did a movie on Wayne Wilson not long ago on C. Wayne Wilson, and it's kind of in that vein, you know what I mean? A little country. I'm narrating it. Sound like a hick, but
well, you're a hell of a filmmaker, man, and I would definitely link to OutKast Paranormal. Everybody check out the show notes and go over and give it a watch. Stacy Brown Jr., man, I can't wait to see you. I'll be up in the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference with you next month, so
oh, right
I can't
on,
wait
bud.
to see you up there, man.
Yeah, man. Swing by and talk to me. Apparently, there's gonna be like 20,000 people there.
Yeah, it was a ton of people there last year, so I'm looking forward to it, man. I'll definitely.
I've never spoke to that many people, let alone I can't even fathom that many people wanting to sit down and watch me talk.
Well, so. It's going to be a good time, man. You'll do great. I will see you up there for sure.
All right, bud. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a blast. And, you know, everybody check me out on YouTube, Bigfoot Stacy. And, yeah, look us up, OutKast Paranormal. We got our first short dropping tomorrow. And then August 2nd is our first feature film. That will be everywhere. It's called The Skunk Ape Experiments. We don't leave any stone uncovered or unturned, or however you say that. Damn, I can't believe I butchered that. But yeah, hey, that pre-algebra. That was also in other classes too. So yeah, but so it's kind of like a rated R expedition, Bigfoot meets ghost adventures. So it's real fun. It's kind of like a horror movie also blended into it. So it's a different take on these paranormal investigations. I'll say that. So but yeah, that comes out August 2nd. You'll check us out, OutKast Paranormal. And I appreciate it, bud.
Awesome, man. I had a blast. That was awesome, man. Um, I'm gonna get this edited and I will have it out tomorrow as promised. It'll probably be, I'm Eastern Standard Time with you, so I'll get up in the morning and get it turned around as quickly as possible, but I imagine I'll probably have it out by lunch. So
right on. Well, where are you at in North Carolina?
Lenore, North Carolina.
Okay.
I was born and raised in like Rome, Georgia.
That's where my dad's from.
Really?
Yeah, he's I think he called it Coosa High School. I think he went
I know exactly where that's
okay, yeah. Yeah, he's we would make the trip. His brothers would come down and we would go and make the trip up there and then see like Berry College and
it's
all that stuff in that
I used to
area.
live in Armurchie, which is like 10 minutes away from Berry College. But I grew up I was born in Rome and I grew up in Somerville, Georgia, up in the hills.
Right.
And there was tons of Bigfoot shit up in there, man. I stumbled across a story recently. I do a story time thing on the show where I read stories from, different encounters and stuff. And I found one that I grew up listening to about ginseng hunters that got ran off of a mountain by a Bigfoot when I was a kid. So I grew up with it, man. And I had experiences there when I was a kid, and we've had some interesting ones here in North Carolina too. So
right on. How far are you from the Brown Mountain Lights?
I've been thinking about doing like at least some kind of a show about the Brown Mountain Lights, but I'm probably 30, 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. So close, man.
Yeah.
I went up there a few years ago, been wanting to go back. I talked to, I think it's Micah. I think it's how you say his name.
Yeah, from
Mika.
Sasquatch Tracks. I talk to those guys often. I'm actually we're trying to get them on the show and kind of do some cross promotion because they're all in North Carolina too.
Yeah, he's right up in that area, and he was like, "Hit me up, I'll go out there with you." So, yeah, maybe we should all get up and I can go try to see those lights. But they say the best time's like October, November.
Yeah, it'd be awesome, man.
So, last time we went, it fucking rained. We went when a hurricane was coming in, and the hurricane followed us all the way up to West Virginia.
Oh yeah.
So, well, all right, brother, I'm gonna go burn some calories.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time, and like I said, I'll get this turned around, and we'll get it out tomorrow. I probably have, my show's over 1 million downloads, so a ton of people are going to listen to it. So
right on,
we'll get some folks turned on to your movie.
Hell yeah, bud. Oh yeah. Hey, if you could put a link for the Skunk Ape Lives, it's on Les Stroud's YouTube.
Okay.
But it's the only place that film's living right now. So we just got over 1 million plays on it a few months ago. So it's still going well, man.
Yeah, Les, I had him on the show a couple of months back. We try to stay in touch as much as possible. He's a busy man, so. But I'll definitely link to that as well.
All right, bud. Well, I appreciate it, man.
All right, have a good night, Stacy.
You too. Thank you.